recording. So before we start, can you guys see my screen? Is everything all right? Good. Good.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. So before we start, just quick introduction. I'm Kim Yew, but you can call me Ivan or Ivan. I'm a first-year actuarial science student. I'm a FIDE master with a current rating of about 2300. So today we're going to be talking about opening principles, which are the main axioms of the opening. And trust me, if you follow these opening principles, your results will shoot up. And this is basically the way that strong players play the opening. We follow these principles by the book. So just to see how much you guys know about this, I'm going to actually open a poll, and I'm going to see whether you guys know which one of these are actual principles, which ones are not. All right. I'm going to launch it now. Can you guys see the poll?
Yep, I can see it.
Great. I'm going to give you guys a minute or so. Yeah. All right, so you've all voted, so I'm going to end the poll now. I'm going to share the results. So all of you mentioned that you must develop your pieces. This is very good, because that is the most important principle. In chess, you must always, in the opening, you must always aim to develop your pieces. The main objective is to develop your pieces and castle, and you must do this quickly and efficiently, which is why people say that you shouldn't move the same piece twice, because that's not efficient and that's not quick, of course. In general, you should try to develop the minor pieces first, then castle, after which your major pieces, so your rooks and queens will be automatically connected. Large majority of you also mentioned that B is correct, which is great, because it's very important to fight for the center. Because the player who controls the center usually can control the course of the game. So it's very important to fight for the center. And you can do this in two ways. First way is you can place your pawns in the center, which is like e4, e5, or the classical openings. And the second way is you can actually attack the opponent's center. It's more like Granfell King's Indian, hyper-modern style. I'm going to show you guys a few examples in a moment. But we'll move on to C for now. Which one of you selected? Grab as many pawns as possible. Now, in principle, it's not exactly a good idea unless you have actually checked the line and you have determined that it's not dangerous. Because if you grab a pawn, you could fall far behind in development and get mated quickly, as we'll see in one of our games. There's a notable exception, though, in that if your opponent offers a central pawn, you should almost always take it, because the way in which we control the center is by using our central pawns, with which we will occupy the central squares and control the central squares at the same time. So if you take the opponent's central pawn, it means he has one less pawn with which he can control the center. So that's almost always a good thing. I'll move on to some very typical mistakes by beginners. Just, well, most beginners like to move their queen out early because they want to show off their strongest piece. However, what usually happens is the queen just gets harassed by the opponent's pieces and it just has to go back. It's not very nice, of course. You must first develop the rooks. Of course, this is not the case, but weirdly enough, most players, when starting out, like to develop their rook first. I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. So I'm going to share my board now. Oh, guys. Right. Can you guys see my board?
Yeah, I can see it.
Right, great. So regarding the first principle, the rapid development of pieces, you can see these in most of the normal openings. I'll just give you a normal example. E4, E5. Now white develops his knight, attacking the pawn. And black develops his knight while defending the pawn. White develops his knight. Black develops his knight. Develops the bishop, and castles, and develops his last piece. This is just standard way to play the opening, nothing too special, but it does ensure that you have a good position going to the middle game and you're not going to get mated quickly. Now, the second principle is a bit more interesting. You can fight for the center. That is, it's important to fight for the center. Now, you can fight for the center in two ways. First way is by occupying the center with your pawns, which is the classical method, of course. Queen's Gambit declined. Should slow down. So you can see white puts his pawn in the center, controlling the central e5 square and occupying the d4 square. Black puts his pawn in the center, controlling the e4 square and occupying d5 square. So both players are taking a share of the center. c4, black defends his central pawn. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5. And this is typical Queen's Gambit decline. There's another way to play, which is you can actually allow your opponent to build up a center, like in a ground foul defense, where white actually gets a pretty big center, but it just gets attacked by black's pieces. And black's, as you can see, black's knight, pawn, bishop, and queen are attacking the white d4 pawn. So this is very powerful indeed. And this is absolutely playable. But one thing that's not playable is, for instance, after d4, d5, when black plays after c4 and black plays knight f6. And this is a typical mistake by beginners. Can anyone of you tell me why this is a mistake and what should white play here?
Pawn captures and then e5, e4, sorry. Maybe.
Exactly, perfect. e4. And white seizes the center. He's controlling all the central squares. He's controlling d4 and e5, the d5 and e5 squares with his pawns, and he's occupying the e4 and d4 squares. In other words, he has the whole center, and black can't really attack it. But if white tries c5, I'll just push the pawn. So it doesn't really make much sense to play in this way. And white's just much better. Of course, how not to play the opening. And I'm going to show you this because this is how beginners like to play. And if you're playing against some of your friends who have just started out, they might open the game this way. h4. And, well, this move doesn't control the center. Obviously, it controls the square g5, but that's not really a square one to control at this point of the game. But the real point is he's trying to bring his rook out to h3. So what should you do as black?
D5.
Sorry?
D5.
D5, exactly. Just stop rook h3. Most people play it anyways because they don't see it, and then you just take the rook. And you just end up a piece. a4, e5 again, controlling a3. And to be honest, when I was 8, most of my games with white started out this way. But I quickly learned that this is not the way you play if you want to win games, of course. And just a quick tip, so you can beat your beginner friends very quickly. Now let's move on to the actual material. We're going to start with a game by Morphy. This was a game played by Meek, which is not very well-known player, probably an amateur, against Morphy. It's quite instructive in a way. The game started out with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4. So this is almost standard moves. And on bishop c4, it's an interesting gambit. Bishop c5 is normal. And now white played knight g5. So now I'm going to open a poll, and you guys can let me know what you think of this move. You think it's a good move? So you guys could vote. This is a bit tricky, so just take your time. I'm giving you like a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes. Right, I hate to rush you guys, but I think we have to move on. So I'm just gonna give you guys 20 more seconds or so. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. I'm gonna end the poll. So let's see. 64% of you thought that it's a good move, and 36% of you thought that it's terrible. So for those of you who didn't like the move, could you guys share with me why you think it's not a good move? But if anyone chose no, could you guys let me know why you think so?
I was thinking d5, then knight to a5.
D5 now, you mean? Isaac, do you mean D5 now?
Yeah, pawn to d5.
So if E takes D5, you want to play knight A5. Yes, I get that.
Yeah.
But what if I take with the bishop? I'm still attacking F7.
Can't black play the knight to h6 and defend the f7 pawn?
Yes, that's actually the point. And knight h6 is a really good move because it develops the knight, prepares castling, and defends the f7 pawn. Oops, sorry about that. And yes, the knight isn't exactly best placed on h6, preferred to be on f6, but it fulfills a purpose, it defends the f7 point, and in the future it might be able to go via g4 to a better square. And well, White's not, on the other hand, White's knight move, where he's moved the knight for the second time without developing any of his queenside pieces, is uncalled for. Let's put it that way. And well, if White does nothing, Black's going to castle, and White's knight on g5 is going to be completely useless. So White had to play consistently. He took on f7. Knight takes f7. Takes, check. g6 and queen takes c5. Point out that it's a fork, so black can't defend his bishop. Has to let it go. Now, sorry, just give me a moment. So how would you guys evaluate this position? Because when you allow to move knight g5, you have to see this position and you have to sort of have a bit of idea of what you think about this position. So I'm going to open another poll and you guys can vote on this. Right, so all of you have voted, so I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. Wow, all of you thought that white is better. Well, almost all of you. And it does seem that way because, well, just at first glance, you see, oh, black's game is a bit open, white's got a better structure, so white should be better, right? But that's a bit superficial, isn't it? Because look at white's pieces. None of them are developed, except for white's queen. And that's not even a good thing, as we'll see very soon. You might argue that black hasn't really developed anything yet, but because of white's queen, and only because of white's queen, black can attack the white queen, and in doing so, gain time for his development. So black started with d6, which I think is a good move. So he's opening diagonal while attacking the queen, preparing to bring his bishop out with bishop e6 in some cases. Black played queen d5, he had to move the queen again. And black played rook e8, attacking the pawn. Now, according to my principles, you should bring the bishop out first, but in this case, there's no real good way to move the bishop. They're not exactly sure where the bishop is going to go. However, it's clear that the rook should go to e8, right, attacks the pawn. So, of course, black does that. And white played queen b3 check. So, I'm going to open yet another poll. You guys can let me know what you think about this move. Give me a moment. Sorry, just give me a moment. It disappeared. But once again, I hate to rush you, but I'm gonna give you 20 more seconds or so. Five, four, three, two, one. I'm going to end the poll. Right, so almost all of you thought it was a bad move. So can anyone share why they chose a certain option? Like for those of you who said no, you guys let me know why you said no.
Because it doesn't allow black to develop a piece, like the bishop to e6. They'll block the check whilst developing a piece.
That is a possibility. He could develop the bishop, of course. But in general, the point is that, well, you should really focus on your development, and white with queen b3, white really isn't developing anything. He's allowing black to continue his play. And yes, bishop b6 is possible, but then white could take on b7. Maybe that's not so clear in a way. Like white could take this pawn, and I'm not so clear. It might not be that clear. However, black just played d5. So now white's in huge trouble because the e4 pawn is just under attack and it's going to be lost. Oops, sorry about that. And now white played the move f3, which is not a good move, of course, because white's in big trouble, but he should have just castled and hoped for the best. Of course, he gives up the e4 pawn, but that's less of the two evils in a way. Because white's down a pawn, but white can still try to bring his pieces up, say knight b2, rook e8, knight f3. And the game goes on. However, after f3, black played a really good move, knight a5. And now, black's breaking the pin on his king, and he's going to be ready to take on e4 on the next move. So queen e3, f takes, d takes, f takes, and queen h4 check. So one thing I should mention is that if you break the opening rules against masters, you can't expect to survive because they'll play very energetically and you won't even get a chance to bring your pieces out. So it's check. So white had to block it. Now rook takes e4, another check. You have to queen e7, and now white's king is in huge trouble. Knight d2, now rook e3. Not a very strong move. So the point is white can't really take on d4 because of rook e2 check, and it's going to be mate very soon. King f3, bishop h3, developing his last piece, and it's going to be mate. Instead, white played queen b5, c6, another good move. White can't take the knight again because of rook e2. Same problem. Whenever black gets rook e2, white's king is just going to get mated, as usual. So white played queen f1. Now a really good move, bishop h3. Again, white can't take because of rook e2. Queen d1. And now a silent killer, rook f8. And just look at this position. Look how beautiful black's pieces are coordinating. His rook, his queen, his other rook, his bishop. The only thing that's not playing is this knight, but other than that, every single one of his pieces are just attacking the white king. Now look at white's pieces. Stupid rook on a1, stupid queen, stupid rook, stupid bishop, stupid knight. So it's game over, of course. White played knight f3, and black just played king e8. And on the next move, black's going to take on f3 with a big material advantage. And that's game over. White resigned. So any questions about this game?
Who did you say played this game?
Game played between Meek and Morphe. I can show you the whole screen.
And now that we can use computers to evaluate it, did Morphe play correctly all the time?
Well, the computer sort of doesn't approve all of his decisions, but he does approve the critical decisions, which I showed you just now at the critical points. And certainly Morphe played very well and very logically. And from a human point of view, at least from my point of view, he played really well and really logical chess. It was definitely good enough to win. That's the most important thing in chess, of course.
Fair enough.
Because we can't expect to play like computers. They just don't play in the same way as we do. So any other questions? No? Then shall we move on to the next game? All right, so the next game I'm going to be showing you is a game between Nimzowitsch and Alapina. This is a very beautiful game. I'm sure you're going to love it. So the game started out normally e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, and Nimzowitsch took on d5. So from what you've learned so far, can you guys let me know which move you prefer? Knight takes d5, which is taking the knight, or e takes d5, which is the second move. I'm going to open a poll. Give me a moment. Right, so most of you have voted. I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds. If you want. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So as you can see, most of you suggested to take with a pawn. I like that. For those of you who chose e takes d5, let me know why you chose that.
Because taking with the knight, you won't be controlling the center squares. Whereas if you take it with the e pawn, you will.
Good. Great. Yeah. Point is, if you go knight takes d5, firstly, your knight doesn't really control the center squares. It controls squares like c3, e3, f4. They're not really central squares. They're good squares, but they're not central squares. And secondly, your knight isn't really that stable on d5. But imagine if this knight wasn't here, I could potentially attack your knight with the move c4. So it's not that stable. And thirdly, well, as we'll see after e takes d5, you open this diagonal for your light square bishop. So you can now develop your bishop to g4 or to f5. And not to mention the fact that the pawn d5 controls the e4 square and occupies the d5 square. So this is a classical method of playing, and it's clearly best in this position. On the other hand, black took with the knight. Not sure about that one. Black take knight f3. Logical, white's developing. c5. Now white took on d5. Now black could take the e pawn, but then he'd be left with this isolated pawn after, say, a sample line like this. Perhaps he was worried that the d5 pawn could become weak. Well, of course, this is another story, and this is a bit advanced. Instead, black took the queen, which is all right. Now white continued developing, bishop e3. C takes d4, knight takes. And now you have a choice as black. What will you do? I'm going to open another poll. So you guys have two options, either to play a6 or knight c6. Sorry, I hate to rush you guys, but I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds or so. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So most of you suggested the move a6. Could you guys, those who selected the move a6, let me know why you selected that move?
Maybe because b5 square is quite good for the knight bishop, and also it allows white to develop the bishop with check and then castle immediately, like afterwards, maybe.
So the reason you chose a6 is this stop.
Oh, overnight, yeah, I guess to like get ready
B.
to castle, yeah.
Oops, sorry, not that.
Oh yeah,
But
no.
you have some sort of point, and weirdly enough, the move a6 is the most played move in this position. I think that's a mistake because it doesn't develop anything, does it?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So why not knight c6 where it develops the knight? Well, now bishop b5, if bishop b5, I can just play, for instance, bishop b7. I don't see anything too special. I'm threatening knight takes d4. I'm going to trade more pieces and go for a draw. No problems there. If you go knight b5, I can play queen e5, which fine, it is moving the queen again, but it is defending the c7 square. I'm preparing to evict your knight by playing a7, a6. And this time when I play a6, your knight's going to be attacked and you have to move it again.
Yep.
So quite like that, right? Black played a6. And now, in my opinion, Nimzowitsch played a very interesting move. He played bishop e2. So he's offering the pawn on g2. You guys take it. Just open another poll. It's the last one. Right, I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds more. Hate to rush you guys, but sorry, but I have to move on. Five, four, three, two, one. I'll share results with you. As you can see, 88% of you said no, which is very nice, of course, because this links back to the third principle we were talking about, or the third answer in our first poll, which I mentioned that you shouldn't take pawns if you're not central pawns, unless you have a really good reason to do so. And in this case, well, let's see, Black did take the pawn, and of course, white simply played bishop f3, attacking the queen, defending his rook, and the queen had to move back. And now white played queen d2, and just look at his position. White's got his knight out, he's got both of his bishops out, his queen out, he's preparing to castle, and bring his rook to e1. And all of his pieces will be active. And now look at black's pieces. Stupid bishop's on the last rank, his knight not doing anything, his rook's just sleeping, his king stuck in the center of the board. And his queen has moved 3 times. 3 times. Then queen takes g2 and back. So of course, white's winning. Now black played move e5, attacking the knight. Probably should have just gone bishop e7 and tried to develop, tried to castle, although white would still have a strong attack after rook g1. If bishop h6 coming, white's going to have a really strong attack. Black played e5, and now white castled, sacrificing knight on d4. After e takes d4, bishop takes d4, the e file is open against black's king. Black still can't castle, he still has to develop his bishop, and he wouldn't have the time for that, of course. Black played knight c6, of course if bishop e7, there are many moves. Like, first move that comes to mind is rook he1, and you can't castle because your bishop would hang. And I'll take back my bishop with a winning position. Black played knight c6. And now a beautiful move. Bishop to f6. Now there are multiple points to this move. Firstly, you guys let me know what happens if black plays a neutral move, like, say, queen f5. What's the most beautiful way to give mate here?
Queen d8.
Yes. Beautiful. That's nice, isn't it? So obviously black couldn't allow that. Black took the bishop. What else is there to do? And now rook he1 check. And now we see white's point. Because if white had started with rook he1 check, black could have played bishop e6. And it's not so easy to win. It's still winning, but it'll take a bit more effort. On the other hand, after queen 6 f6 check, if you play bishop e6, now it's mate in 1. With which move?
Queen d7.
Yes. The bishop is pinned. You can't take because of the king, of course. So this is checkmate. So black blocked the check. Took the knight. Now if black takes on c6, white's going to play queen d8 checkmate. So black played f8. And now, this is a very nice puzzle. Could you guys let me know what best move is?
Would it still be queen to d8?
And if I take the queen?
You can move rook to e8.
Brilliant. Yes, that was what happened in the game. Queen d8 check. Brilliant. Bishop d8, rook e8 checkmate. Wow. That was it. One of my favorite games, to be honest. Just because of its simplicity, and yet it's still very beautiful. So that's all I've prepared for today. So for the rest of the session, we can do like some questions and answers. If you guys have anything you'd like to ask about chess, general? So, does anyone have any questions about like chess in general? Sorry?
When did you start playing?
Oh, it's a long time ago. I first learned moves when I was 8, but I didn't start playing seriously until I was 11. So, by chance, I stumbled upon a tournament,
Yeah.
which was introduced to me by a friend of mine. Yeah, I started playing, and I found out I was not too bad at it, so I just continued on.
Evan, are you following the I think they postponed the candidates cycle for the World Championship. Were you following that when it started? And do you have any favorites?
Oh, I'm not really following that. I don't know because they keep postponing it. I think this is the 3rd time it'll be postponed, if I'm not mistaken. So,
But in those
I don't know.
top players, like those top 5 or 10 guys, is there anyone whose style you like or who you find beneficial to study?
Of the current top 10,
Yeah.
I think Carlsen's style is very interesting because his play is very simple but yet strong. And if you go through his moves and try to understand every single one of his moves, you'll find that they're very deep. You can learn a lot from them. Certainly, if you could get like someone to explain them, that would be even better. I suggest that you look at Carlsen's games that have annotations from chess.com or any other website, or even some videos on YouTube where some grandmasters actually cover these games. Other than that, I would say Firouz Shah is also very interesting. He's got a very exciting style. He never plays normal chess. It's always some crazy positions. So that's really fun. I always love to watch his games.
Is that the Iranian guy?
Yes, it is. He is currently leading Tata Steel together with Caruana and Giri, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I'm rooting for him. I hope he wins. If he was playing the candidates, I would be rooting for him. That's for sure.
Who do you think is going to win today, Magnus or Caruana?
Caruana.
Or do you think, Joel?
Oh, I think it'll probably be a draw again.
Yeah.
Especially because Carlsen's played quite solidly. He's played this castle line with bishop b4 and bishop d6. Very solid line. I played it myself. Mostly draws.
Magnus needs a win, doesn't
he? Yeah, he does. I guess we'll see. It's still 4 more rounds in this round.
Yeah.
Still a long time. He could still make a comeback, although I think the chances are very slim.
Yeah. Do you have any personal goals in chess that you want to get?
Yeah, of course. Since I was 11, I wanted to be a grandmaster.
Oh yeah.
That's really the only goal I have for now.
Fair enough.
On the way, probably to get a couple of norms, international master norms. That's my short-term goal, to get my rating to 2400.
Oh yeah.
Just take it a step at a time, basically.
So does it go FM, IM, then GM? Is that the steps? Oh, okay.
Can I just ask what is a grandmaster norm?
Well, it's basically a certificate which is awarded to you when you play good enough. Basically, you have to get 2600 performance rating, playing against at least 3 grandmasters in a 9-round tournament. So it's really not easy, because how it works is if you lose even one game, then then it's almost impossible to get the norm because you need at least 6.5 to get the norm, 6.5 out of 9 against other masters, FIDE masters, international masters, and those 3 grandmasters. So you can't really afford to lose.
What time format is it? Do they play when they do that?
Well, the shortest time control would be 90 minutes plus 30 seconds. But mostly it's 90 minutes plus 30 seconds with 30 minutes after 40 moves. Is my favorite time control.
Oh yeah.
It's not too long, but it's enough so that I can go to the toilet after the time control.
Yeah.
Right, I think we can maybe end early because later we'll have a social, a club social. So do join us on Discord. I hope it'll be fun.
Yes,
Yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks for your
Right.
time.
See you then. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting this lecture.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you next week.